So good morning all. It's 9 a.m. I'd like to call this meeting of the Sports Wagering Application Review Commission to order. And to begin, the agenda for a draft agenda for this meeting was published and disseminated in advance. Do I have a motion for approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Thank you all. The agenda is approved. Before proceeding this morning, I'd like to acknowledge that Governor Hogan sent us a letter Tuesday evening directing us to act immediately on mobile sports wagering so that it could begin before the start of the regular NFL season on September 8th. The governor also issued a press release relating to the letter, so each of you should have received a copy. I understand that many are frustrated that the process relating to the issuance of Maryland's mobile sports wagering licenses has been time consuming. I also want everyone to know that SWRC and its support team have been operating as diligently and deliberately as we can under the Maryland sports wagering law that we're tasked to administer. Maryland's law is particularly complex because, unlike any other jurisdiction, there's a significant deliberate effort to enable small businesses, minority-owned businesses, and women-owned businesses to have equity positions and to participate in the growth of the new sports wagering industry. Accordingly, the law imposes several prerequisites on SWRC before it can adopt regulations governing applications for the mobile and additional Class B sports wagering licenses provided in the law. Specifically, the sports wagering law requires SWRC, together with the Maryland Department of Transportation MBE specialists, the Governor's Office of Small, Minority, and Women-Owned and Women Business Affairs, and the Office of the Attorney General, among other things, to evaluate a study of the sports wagering industry and market to determine whether there's a compelling interest to implement remedial measures to assist minorities and women in the sports wagering industry. The law requires us to evaluate race-neutral programs or other methods that may be used to address the needs of minorities, women, and minority and women-owned businesses seeking to participate in the sports wagering industry, including through ownership of the business of licensees. And the law requires us to adopt regulations to implement remedial measures if permitted by law. Each of these legal requirements has required time, consideration of study outcomes when available, and legal analyses and advice to the commission. SWRC is and has been working through these legal requirements. For example, several months ago, the Department of Legislative Services procured on SWRC's behalf the services of a research consultant to conduct the required sports wagering industry study. The study is ongoing, and its results and the legal advice of the Office of the Attorney General will criteria and evaluation. While SWRC has been working through the industry study, SWRC's also been working on drafts of the preliminary regulations and applications. A draft of these preliminary regulations and applications will be delivered to SWRC members early next week. I intend for SWRC to take action with respect to these drafts at a special meeting in the next few weeks. These steps are necessary for SWRC to set forth a sports wagering application evaluation process that is legally sound and to the maximum extent permissible by law, allows SWRC to seek to achieve racial, ethnic, and gender diversity when awarding the sports wagering licenses. Our new SWRC website and our education efforts have been drawing attention to Maryland sports wagering license opportunities. As other tasks are completed, SWRC will be in a better position to provide a timeline to license issuances. Based on what we know today, I expect the SWRC applications for mobile sports wagering and additional Class B licenses to be published this summer and for SWRC to begin accepting applications shortly thereafter. So with that, let's proceed with the agenda and the next item, which is a report from our Taft consultants on the application draft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, Commissioners. This is again Kim Kopp from Taft in Chicago. I wanted to just follow up real quickly at what the chairman has said, is that we have been working on draft applications. We've made a determination to do a mobile license application and a separate Class B facility application. Both of those are in process and should be delivered to you folks for your review and consideration, probably I would say sometime early next week. And then, of course, as the chair had just announced, we would expect that we could act on those within the next few weeks and get those out to the public. While during that process, while we're working through these preliminary drafts of the applications, obviously we'll continue working with the industry study that was required by law and its findings, and then analyzing those so that we can, do any tweaks or amendments to the application that would be permitted or necessary. So I don't have much more to report publicly on that, but that's the process, and it is certainly moving forward. I look forward to hearing everyone's comments once they receive those drafts.
Thank you, Kim. Has anybody from the commission got any questions of our consultants on that topic? Hearing none, I call on Jim Nielsen from the Lottery Commission to talk about the status of draft regulations.
Thank you. Much like what Taft is reporting, we've been working on the regulations. They're now about 95% done. We plan to provide them to the commission, as the chairman said, early next week after another final review in-house. And then hopefully we'll get a meeting relatively quickly so that we can go through them and take your feedback. I will warn you, those of you who haven't seen Maryland regulations in the past, they are not an easy read. They are a little confusing, but that's the way that they have to be submitted. So that's what we're doing. Once they are finalized and you have all voted on them, they would be submitted through the normal regulatory process for approval, which takes a little bit of time. We do intend to do these as emergency regulations to try to accelerate things so that they can be released fairly quickly. And that's about it.
Any comments or questions? I will just add to what Jim said, having seen the drafts, lengthy, confusing, and requiring patience, I can endorse as a necessary part of conducting business as a state institution. So this is a healthy process.
Mr. Chair, I believe the regs are 89 pages. That was my recollection. So.
No, they're significantly less than that this time. They're about 25.
Thank you.
My
There's a lot of reading.
But I will hasten to point out, since I was a little slow to catch on, there are both SWORC regulations and Lottery Commission regulations to which our applicants will be subject. And so indeed, a large part of the learning process as to what lies ahead is that it's the sum of those two parts, which our applicants will be consuming. And indeed, a part of all of our communications is going to be making that clear, so that once we get these applications, they are as complete and compliant as we hope they will be. So if there are no other questions on this topic, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which I believe is going to be very insightful for us commissioners. Mr. Nielsen, e-licensing.
Okay, thank you again. So in order to help our new and inexperienced applicants avoid delays in submitting their applications for background investigations to the Lottery and Gaming Commission, we've decided to allow access to our e-licensing system beginning this Friday, tomorrow. This applies to the businesses and to the principals and employees who will be licensed by SWARC and/or the Gaming Commission. We've seen firsthand that some people are unprepared for how in-depth our investigations are, and it can delay their licensing submissions. We suggested all along that potential applicants look at the sample applications on our website to get an idea of what information is required, and some have done that. But now we want to go ahead and actually give people access to the applications in our system, which is how you must submit these applications, and have them actually start entering data and uploading documents. And we have staff that will be ready to help them through this process. Our experience is that anybody going through this, especially the first time, is going to need some guidance, and that's what our staff is here to do. What we're recommending is anyone who is contemplating applying for a sports wagering license can contact us for access, and there will be instructions provided. We will not begin our investigatory process until the applicant has completed their application, submitted it, and paid our appropriate fees, which are between $2,000 and $5,200, depending upon the type of application. But they can enter the data, they can upload their documents, and they can get comfortable that they've got everything in place. And again, we will be talking to them, walking them through it to make sure that they've got it done completely. As I said, this is intended to help inexperienced applicants navigate what we know is a complex and comprehensive background investigation process. The entities that are licensed for gaming or sports betting in Maryland or any other state are familiar with this process, and yet very often they need help or they make mistakes when they do an application. So inexperienced people are certainly going to need some help. We're also aware that there are some people who are unsure at this point if they want to apply for a sports wagering license, and they're waiting to decide until they see the application, which makes sense. That's fine. But we still encourage those people to start this process. They can do it without making a payment until they're completely sure, but they can get the data in there, and we can get everything ready for the review when they decide if they actually want to go all the way and submit an application. One other point is that if someone submits a completed application and pays the fee, we will begin the licensing and investigatory process for qualifications. If they subsequently decide that they do not want a license, we can refund part of the money. If we've done work, we have to charge for it. But if we haven't gotten to it yet, or if we've done a small amount of work, they can get at least a partial refund. So we're doing our best to make sure that this is as painless as possible, but helps them as much as we can. Any questions?
Kim?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, just for the folks or the industry folks that may be watching this meeting, I just think it might be worth just doing a quick clarification so it's clear at the process. Is we know that there are two components in any of the application process, whether it's a mobile license or a Class B license. And the two processes are, one, of course, the SWARC application and the SWARC piece, which is the application that we just said that the drafts we're working on, and those applications are not yet available, but will be shortly. Those applications are used, but the information that will be received will be used by SWARC to determine if a person should be granted a license. At that same time, there's a second piece. The second piece is with Maryland Lottery and Gaming Control Commission. And with that piece is their background applications, which are available. Forms of them are available on Maryland Lottery's website for folks to look at. And those obviously would be vetting and background information for principals, key persons, officers, directors, and owners of the applicants. But those both pieces will be necessary ultimately to be awarded a license. So I just thought it might be worth just a clarification. Folks who are experienced in the industry may know this, but those who aren't, just wanted to make sure we understand that that's what Jim was referring to, Mr. Nielsen was referring to about access to the e-licensing system. For the Maryland Lottery application piece, those applications will have to be submitted only through that portal. So he's giving early access now for people to begin doing that. I hope I didn't massacre that summary, but I just thought it might be good for the industry to hear the two components.
No, thank you, Kim. I appreciate the clarification, and you're absolutely right. What we do as the Gaming Commission is to show that an applicant is qualified, and they must be qualified before SWARC can award a license. So they fit together and they are separate tracks. Thank you for that.
And Jim, the reason we're doing this now is to try to facilitate and make it easier for people to start this process, because the review is extensive. And I'm sure that those inexperienced folks don't have any idea how extensive it really is. So the sooner they can start, the sooner they can finish. And we've never done this before. So we're really trying to facilitate the launch of this next phase of sports wagering.
Right.
I would just add, just as a relative newcomer to this application process, that as I have been looking at drafts, and as I said earlier, Jim's work is daunting. And as I read the regs, I thought, isn't this a nightmare that somebody's got to put down $50,000 for a Class B or $500,000 for a mobile, and then possibly be told, gotcha, you didn't understand, and we're keeping your money. And that sounded like a nightmare of nightmares to me. And the remedy is this e-licensing portal enabling iterative Q&A among applicants who may be new to this kind of a process for relatively modest fees to compensate for the costs involved, to move this along and use this time now, beginning when this e-licensing portal opens up, to intelligently exchange and clarify. No matter how we try to write this stuff, it's, the best of intentions can be misunderstood. So this message about e-licensing, I think, is particularly significant, and I want to offer that perspective thereon.
And tomorrow's day one.
Yes.
Thank you, Jim.
Yes. Thank you. If I could just add one more item, I apologize. I think it's also important to know that the e-licensing system, I understand you can go on, start populating it, you could save where you are, and then come back and revisit it again. So that's the good piece, is you don't have to sit down and slug through the whole thing at one point. So that's a good piece that isn't also available in all jurisdictions. So thank you for doing that.
It's still daunting, even though user-friendly.
No doubt. Anyone else on the commission with comments or questions about any of the business up to this point? All right, well, that takes us to a report from Mr. Mooney regarding the status of the application opportunities under the law for Class A and B to date.
Good morning, Commissioners. As far as the name 17, we have the 5 casinos that are up and running. You and our commission has approved Long Shots, Green Mountain, Riverboat, and Bingo World. They are all in different stages of working with Jim Logue and Michael Eaton on their internal controls. We have 2 other of the name 17 that we're actively doing background investigations on. And then we have 3 others that are actually working through their applications on e-licensing. And also next week for the Lottery and Gaming Control Commission, we will be presenting facility operator for approval. That's my update.
Very good. That's something to look forward to. So internal control and background checks are the long poles in the tent, based on the experience of the 17 so far, is I think what I'm hearing as a lesson learned for the prospective new applicants. Very good. Any other questions or comments on this topic?
I just wanted to make sure I was counting correctly. If all of the people that have indicated an interest have applied and have, in various processes. Am I correct in assuming that that would be a total of 13 of the 17?
I believe it's 14, and we have 3 that we have no activity from.
Got it. Good.
Thank you. I was trying to count. Obviously, I can't, but thank you.
Very good. All right, there being no further discussion of that business, the next agenda item is election of a vice chair. So just as I think I put in an email to the commissioners, I didn't expect to be here today because my wife and I were going to go to Europe, and I wouldn't have been available. But then Sunday I tested positive for COVID, so now I'm in my daughter's bedroom conducting business this morning. So all that was a kind of kick in the pants to get a vice chair in place so that human frailty doesn't obstruct progress by Sports Wagering Commission. So do I have a nomination, please, for a vice chair of our commission?
Mr. Chair, it would be my great pleasure to nominate Bert Hatch.
Wonderful. Bert Hatch is nominated. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Very good. We have a nomination and second. Any others? Hearing none. All in favor of making Bert Hatch the vice chair, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, it's unanimous. Thank you all. That item of business is conducted, and that concludes the planned agenda items for this morning meetings. Is there any need in the minds of any of our commissioners for a closed session today?
Bro.
I hear no such need.
So, Mr. Chair, I have a question. Should we set a date 2 weeks out so we can get it on our calendars?
Yeah, that's
Review the
fine with
application.
me. I think that's a good idea. And 9 a.m. on Wednesdays is the other day is Thursday, but ordinarily Wednesdays, right? Mr. Butler, would that be suitable?
We can do that, Mr. Chair. So that would be Wednesday, June 29th, if we want to do it at 9 o'clock. For everybody, I can send around a meeting invite and determine everyone's availability.
Very good.
So right now, we'll schedule the next special meeting of the SWORT on June 29th at 9 o'clock.
Very good. That makes sense. I think most of us have set that hour aside. I certainly have for my indefinite future. So thanks, Randy.
I'll be in Texas, but I can log in from there.
Yeah, I heard they have internet down there too.
Yeah, they do. Chicago too.
It's hot down there. I was there last week. All right, then, and then we have our next regularly scheduled meeting on July 20th. So our dance card is filling up. And with
Mr. Chairman,
that,
I have a question. I have
Yes,
a
ma'am.
question regarding your response to the governor's letter that you read. Is that going to also be sent to the governor? And if so, can we have a copy?
because this is a public meeting and everything else we do seems to get communicated, my assumption was that
That's sufficient.
that served as sufficient
Okay.
for the record. Lots of other folks were listening to us today as well. If you'd like me to send you my notes, I'd be glad to.
No, that's fine. If that's considered sufficient, that's fine.
I think so. And I consulted with our advisors on that plan of action. So thanks for asking.
Thank you.
All righty. Well, if there's no other business for our group, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Thank you, Bert.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Hearing no opposition, we stand adjourned. Thank you all. And we'll be back together on June 29th. Have a great